At 2:47 p.m., my wife texted coffee with a friend. Like it was nothing. I answered with one line that turned her lie into a countdown. Tuesday afternoons are supposed to be harmless. A slow stretch between lunch and the next meeting, the kind of time you burn pretending you're productive while your brain drifts. I'm in my home office with a spreadsheet open, quarterly projections, clean columns, fake control. Outside the window, the neighborhood looks normal. Trimmed lawns, delivery vans, a kid pedaling circles in a driveway. My phone buzzes. Megan Parker. Grabbing coffee with a friend. Home by 5. It's casual. Like the kind of sentence people use when they want you to swallow it without chewing. For weeks, my marriage has been slipping sideways in small increments. Nothing you can point to in a single conversation. Just the way a rug shifts under your feet until you realize you've been sliding the whole time. She's been careful. Careful enough that, if I confronted her with a feeling, she could turn it into an argument about my stress. So I don't send a feeling. I send a scalpel. I type one question and keep it clean. No accusation, no heat. Just a detail that belongs to a private life I'm no longer locked out of. Me. Tell him to ask his wife whether she liked the lavender scone at Morrison's Bakery. Then I set the phone face down like it's done its job and doesn't need my attention anymore. My hand is steady. That's the part that would have surprised the old version of me, the guy who believed love made you safe. The truth is, love makes you vulnerable, and vulnerability teaches you to notice patterns. I swivel back to the monitor and close the spreadsheet. A folder sits on my desktop with a name that means nothing to anyone else. Q4. Inside it, subfolders with dates, screenshots, notes, a timeline that doesn't argue or plead. It just exists. I open the newest file and add a line. 2:47 p.m. Coffee with a friend. 2:48 p.m. Message sent. There's a calm that comes with committing to reality. Guessing is exhausting. Documenting is clean. I don't need her to confess. I don't need her to cry and call it a mistake. I don't need a dramatic scene to justify what I already know. Proof doesn't arrive like thunder. It arrives like a timestamp. And at 2:47, I stopped pretending my marriage was still something you could save with hope. It was something you ended with evidence. 22 years is a long time to believe something without question. That's the part people don't get when they ask why I didn't see it coming. They imagine a siren, a lipstick stain, a late-night confession. They want betrayal to announce itself so they can feel smart for noticing. It doesn't work like that. It starts boring. It starts with a name said too casually, too often, like repetition will make it normal. Daniel, she'd say, dropping it into conversation the way you drop a dish into a sink. Daniel thinks this. Daniel said that. Daniel's team is slammed. At first I didn't care. Megan's always been competent, always been social in a way I'm not. We built a life where trust was automatic, like breathing. I wasn't the jealous type. I was the man who never checked a phone, never asked who she was texting, because why would I? Then the small inconsistencies began. A late evening that didn't match the calendar. Not a big lie, just a soft one. Team dinner ran long, she said, except her calendar showed nothing, and when I asked what restaurant, she paused half a second too long before naming a place we've never been to. Don't panic. Not guilt. Just calculation. The perfume came next. Not her scent. Something lighter. Floral in a way that didn't fit her. I noticed it once and told myself it was a coworker's hug. Then I noticed it twice and stopped explaining it to her. She started angling her phone away, not like a teenager hiding something, but like a woman who's practiced making privacy look like a habit. The screen would dim when I walked into a room. A laugh would cut off too fast. She'd answer texts with her thumb tucked close, like shielding. Then there were the charges. Lunch spots on our card during hours she claimed she skipped eating. Coffee purchases in parts of town she didn't have meetings in. Little amounts. $14, $23, $38. Nothing dramatic enough to trigger a fight. Just enough to leave a trail if someone bothered to follow it. I bothered. Not because I wanted to be right. Because I wanted to be done feeling wrong for noticing. That's the real erosion. Not the betrayal itself, but the way it turns you into a man who second-guesses his own math. I'd look at her across the kitchen island and think, maybe I'm tired, maybe I'm reading into it. Then she'd mention Daniel again, and the pattern would tighten by one more notch. A marriage doesn't crack all at once. It cracks one small inconsistency at a time until you realize you're living inside a structure that still looks solid from the street, but you can feel it shifting when you walk. I didn't explode. I didn't accuse. I started listening differently. And once you start listening for what doesn't line up, you can't unhear it. Last Thursday, it happened the way real endings happen. Quiet, stupid, and irreversible. Megan stepped away from the kitchen table to take a call. Not unusual. Her laptop was still open, angled toward me like it belonged to the room, like nothing on it could hurt anyone. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't even thinking about her. I was looking at a vendor email when the corner of her screen lit up. One of those message previews that floats in like it owns the place. A name, Daniel Reed. Then a line of text that didn't need context. It didn't need maybe. It didn't need interpretation. Something intimate, familiar. The kind of sentence two people don't write unless they've already crossed the line and gotten comfortable living on the other side of it. I felt my body go still, like a door had closed somewhere inside me. No adrenaline, no shaking hands. Just a clean drop, like an elevator cable snapping, silent at first, then the weight of it hitting all at once. She came back smiling, still holding her phone, still in the soft performance of normal life. "You okay?" she asked. I looked at her and saw two versions at the same time. The woman I built a home with, and the woman who could type that sentence to another man and then ask me if I was okay. "Yeah," I said. "Just work." That was the moment my old self died. The version of me that wanted innocence. The version that wanted it to be a misunderstanding so badly, he would have accepted any explanation with enough confidence behind it. After that preview, innocence wasn't a possibility. It wasn't even worth hoping for. Hope is what cheaters count on. Hope is what keeps you quiet while they keep moving. I didn't confront her that night. I didn't talk it out. I didn't give her a chance to workshop a story while I sat there like a customer waiting for service. I went upstairs when she did. I kissed her goodnight like routine. I lay there beside her while she scrolled on her phone, her thumb moving in small, practiced motions. In the dark, I made a decision so simple it almost felt like relief. I would not argue with a liar. I would build something that held up in daylight. Something that survived lawyers, denial, and the way people love to pretend the truth is complicated. Because that's what betrayal does when it gets cornered. It doesn't confess. It reframes. So I stopped being a husband trying to understand. And I became a man collecting facts. Betrayal loves vagueness. It lives in half-truths, in missing time, in the space between what someone says and what they can prove. That's why cheaters get bold. They learn that if you can't pin a moment down, you can't hold them to it. I took that away. Over the next 3 days, I used the skills I actually have, not dramatic ones, not movie stuff. Just patience, systems, and a willingness to look at ugly information without flinching. We had shared accounts, shared backups, shared family plans that made life convenient back when we were a team. Convenience works both ways. I started with cloud sync history, logins, devices, dates, anything that left a footprint. Then I cross-checked. Calendar entries against card statements. Work lunch days against restaurant charges. Late meeting nights against rideshare receipts and parking payments. When the story said one thing and the data said another, I didn't argue. I highlighted it. I took screenshots of everything, then screenshots of the screenshots because files disappear when people panic. I labeled them by date and time. I wrote short notes like a man building a case, not a man writing a diary. Monday 12:14, lunch charge. Riverfront Cafe Monday 12:18. Text thread spike Monday 2:03. Calendar shows, open, claims client meeting. Patterns started to appear the way constellations do once you know where to look. Not one big lie, many small ones stacked until they formed structure. I didn't do it to punish her. I did it to protect myself. Because the moment you confront a cheater without proof, you become the problem. You become controlling, paranoid, insecure. They don't defend their behavior, they attack your reaction. Evidence prevents that. Evidence doesn't raise its voice. It just sits there and waits. And the strange part? The more I saved, the calmer I got. It wasn't numbness. It was ordered. Chaos is what cheaters rely on, the blur of maybe, the fog of your overthinking, the constant negotiation of reality. I wasn't negotiating anymore. By the end of the third day, I had a timeline clean enough that no one could call it misunderstanding. A folder system that made the truth simple. The kind of simple that destroys excuses. I closed my laptop and stared at the neat stacks of digital proof like they were paperwork for a life I was about to cancel. Then my phone buzzed again. Another coffee. Another casual lie. And this time I wasn't building the dossier anymore. I was choosing where to use it. Yesterday morning, I did something I'd never imagined doing in my own life. I followed my wife. Not like a cartoon villain. Not speeding through traffic or ducking behind trees. Just a man who needed one clean confirmation before he detonated his own home. She left with the same relaxed posture she'd had for weeks. Keys in hand, hair right, that lightness people get when they think they're getting away with something. I waited long enough to make it natural, then drove behind her at a distance that didn't scream desperation. She didn't go anywhere near the places she named when she was lying to me. She went straight to a coffee shop on the edge of downtown, glass front, warm lighting, the kind of place that sells artisanal like it's a moral quality. I parked across the street with a clear angle through the windows. 2 minutes later, he walked in. Daniel Reed. I'd only seen him in company photos. Smiling in a suit, cropped at the shoulders, safe-looking. In person he was taller than I expected, carrying himself like a man who believed he could take whatever he wanted and still be considered respectable. Megan's face changed when she saw him. That's the thing that hits hardest. Not that she met him, but that she lit up. She stood. They hugged like it was practiced. Not awkward. Not cautious. Easy. Her hand stayed on his shoulder half a beat too long. They sat close, too close for colleagues. Their knees angled inward. Their bodies turned like the rest of the room didn't exist. She laughed. And it wasn't the polite laugh she gives strangers. It was loose. Familiar. His fingers found her hand on the table and covered it like he'd done it 100 times. I watched the touch, and something in me settled into stone. No more fog. No more maybe. He leaned in. She didn't pull away. Then he stood first because men like that always decide when things begin and end. They walked out together and paused on the sidewalk like they didn't want the moment to break. He kissed her cheek. Not a friendly peck. A claim. She smiled up at him like she'd forgotten she had a husband. He walked to a silver sedan and opened the driver's door. When he turned, I saw the back seat. A child's car seat. That detail did something different. It widened the betrayal. Made it messier. Added collateral damage I didn't agree to. I pulled my notebook from the console and wrote down his plate number with the same calm I used on spreadsheets. Later, I made one call to a contact who owed me a favor. Nothing illegal, nothing dramatic. Just information that people think is hidden because they've never needed to find it. The registration came back with a name and an address. And with it, the life he was risking like it was a game. His wife, Jennifer Chun. An elementary school teacher. Public profile. Family photos. Holiday crafts. Smiling kid at a pumpkin patch. A man in the background, Daniel, pretending to be the same kind of husband I used to think I was. Small, ordinary happiness. The kind you don't armor because you don't believe you need to. I stared at her pictures longer than I expected to. Not because I wanted her. Because I recognized the expression in her eyes. Certainty. And I realized mine had been stolen the same way. Quietly. Casually. With coffee cups on a weekday morning. This morning I went to Morrison's Bakery because Jennifer Chun posted about it the way people post about safe places. Like routine can't be invaded. The smell hit me before I even got inside. Butter, sugar, coffee. Normal life. She was exactly where I expected. Small table near the window, alone, stacks of papers spread out. Red pen moving with patient precision. Hair pulled back. Tired eyes. A woman who looked like she still believed her house was her house. I didn't hover. I didn't circle like a predator. I walked up and stopped at a respectful distance. Jennifer Chan? I asked. She looked up fast, teacher reflex. Polite caution. Yes. My name's Mark Parker, I said. Are you married to Daniel Reed? That question drains color from a room when it lands right. Her mouth opened, then closed. Her gaze flicked to my hands like she was checking for a threat. I kept them visible, empty. Why? She said. Because I'm married to Megan, I said. And I believe Daniel and Megan are having an affair. Silence. Not dramatic. Heavy. She stared at me like she wanted to deny it and couldn't find the energy. Sit, she said finally, voice flat. If you're going to say it with facts. So I did. I slid my phone across the table and showed her the photo I took from across the street. Their posture, the closeness, his hand over hers. I showed her dates, times, charges that matched work lunches. A message preview I couldn't unsee. She didn't cry. Not at first. She just read. She kept reading like her brain was trying to make the information less real by processing it perfectly. When she spoke, it was quiet. He told me he had to stay late last night, she said. He said during the budget meeting. I nodded once. Megan said coffee. Jennifer's hand shook once. She folded it into her other hand like she could compress it back into control. How long? She asked. Long enough to build folders, I said. I'm not here to recruit you into revenge. I'm here because the truth is bigger than my marriage. She held my gaze. Measure me. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out her phone. Opened her calendar. Her bank app. She slid it toward me without a word. Two strangers, comparing notes. By the time 90 minutes passed, we weren't friends. We weren't allies in some dramatic way. We were simply aligned. Truth. Consequences. The end of being lied to. And when I left, Jennifer didn't thank me. She didn't need to. Her eyes said it for her. Now it's real. Now it's finished. Megan read my text at a stoplight. She didn't reply right away. That's what told her it wasn't a normal message. Normal messages get an automatic thumbs up. A quick, LOL. A lie wrapped in comfort. This one made her freeze. Lavender scone at Morrison's Bakery. She reread it twice like the words might change if she stared hard enough. Then she did what cheaters always do when the ground shifts. She reached for the other liar. Daniel answered on the second ring. Megan turned her phone so he could see the screen. His face changed in a way men can't fake. It wasn't confusing. It wasn't anger. It was recognition. The kind that says, he's in my life now. He's in places I didn't give him a key to. Is that? Megan whispered. Daniel swallowed. His eyes flicked left and right like the room might offer an exit. How would he know about Morrison's? He said, but it came out thin. Already defensive. Already bargaining. Megan's throat worked like she was trying to force down panic. He's bluffing, she said. But it sounded like she was trying to convince herself. Daniel stared at the screen again. That's not a bluff, he said. That's a message from someone who already knows. Because bluffs come with emotion, with noise, with threats and caps lock. My line had none of that. It was calm, specific, surgical. Daniel shifted closer, voice dropping. Do you think he talked to Jen? Megan's eyes snapped up. No, but she didn't sound sure. And uncertainty is a toxin when your whole game is controlled. They started scrambling. Two adults suddenly reduced to the same stupid questions. What does he have? Who did he tell? What do we say? What do we deny? Megan began firing texts at me anyway. Testing the fence, trying to find a gap. Megan. What is that supposed to mean? Megan. Are you okay? Megan. Call me. Then the call. Then another. Then the kind of concern that's really just fear wearing a polite mask. She left the coffee shop early. Drove too fast. Hands white on the steering wheel. In her mind, the plan was simple. Get home, get ahead of it, force a conversation before I could finish whatever I'd started. When she pulled into the driveway, the house looked normal. Lights off, curtains drawn, no broken glass, no police, no dramatic scene. For half a second, she probably felt relief. Then she walked inside, and the missing pieces started speaking. A coat gone from the closet. A drawer not just disturbed, emptied. The guest room bed stripped. The quiet kind of quiet you only notice when someone has removed themselves from your life with intention. She stood in the hallway and listened, like she could hear me in the walls. There was nothing, because I didn't step out for air. I stepped out of the marriage. Megan found the office door half open. She stepped in slowly, like the room might bite. Everything looked normal at first glance. Same desk, same chair, same framed photo on the shelf that she probably hadn't looked at in years. But the air felt staged, quiet in a way that wasn't accidental. On the center of my desk sat my wedding ring. Not tossed, not dramatic, placed flat, perfectly still, like punctuation at the end of a sentence. Next to it was a thick envelope, legal size, her name printed clean on the front. No hearts, no anger, no shaking handwriting to hide behind. She touched the ring first, picked it up like it was heavier than metal. Then she opened the envelope. The first page was a letter. One page, tight lines, no speeches. I didn't write "I love you" anywhere. I didn't write "why" either. I wrote facts. I wrote about Chicago. I wrote lunch charges. I wrote about the coffee shop. I wrote the message preview, the dates, the pattern. I wrote Daniel's name like it belonged there, because it did. I wrote Jennifer's name too, because the truth doesn't stop at our front door. I kept the tone the same way I kept my text. Calm enough to make panic impossible to ignore. Behind the letter was the dossier. Screenshots in order. Receipts attached. A simple timeline that didn't give her room to perform confusion. A photo, clear enough to end the just friends routine without needing interpretation. And then the part that removed her options. A proposed split laid out with precise fairness. Counts listed. Property addressed. A process that didn't ask for permission, only compliance. Because cruelty wasn't the point. Clarity was. The last sheet explained what she was already starting to feel in her throat. This wasn't an argument. It was an exit. And the narrative she'd been building, we drifted, we grew apart, it was complicated, was dead on arrival. No screaming. No pleading. No tug of war. Just consequences arranged in neat stacks. Megan lowered herself into my chair like her knees had stopped working. The ring still in her hand. The paper trembling now that she finally understood something simple. She wasn't coming home to a conversation. She was coming home to a finished decision. Weeks don't heal anything by themselves. Weeks just give consequences time to arrive. The first week after she found the ring and the packet, Megan tried every door she'd ever used on me. Calls that started soft and ended sharp. Texts that pretended to be worried, then flipped into anger when I didn't respond fast enough to make her feel in control. I didn't block her right away. Not because I wanted to hear it, because I wanted a clean record of how she behaved when she couldn't steer the story anymore. Her messages followed a predictable pattern. This isn't what you think. We need to talk. You're throwing away 22 years. You're doing this to punish me. Cheaters hate silence because silence doesn't negotiate. Silence doesn't get baited into a fight where they can play victim. I moved like a man handling a flood. Shut off valves. Protect what matters. Don't stand there staring at the water. My attorney handled the formal communication. I stopped answering anything that wasn't logistical. I moved money the way we'd agreed in the packet. Exactly fair, exactly documented. I changed passwords. I separated accounts. I pulled my personal files out of shared storage. I cleaned my side of the street so well nobody could claim I'd acted out of rage. Then the outside world started calling. HR came first. Not with drama, with policy. That's how institutions deal with personal betrayal. They strip it down to procedures and risk. I didn't talk in speeches. I didn't use loaded words. I sent what I had, time-stamped, organized, and completed. Let the facts do what facts do. Families followed. Mine was quiet at first, stunned, then protective. Hers split into camps. The ones who wanted to pretend it was a rough patch, and the ones who saw the folder and understood there was no patch, just rot. Jennifer kept her side clean too. We didn't become friends. We didn't trade late-night phone calls or start some shared misery club. We exchanged what mattered and then let distance do its job. I respected that, because what Megan and Daniel did wasn't just about us. It was about two households that didn't consent to being part of their little private world. Daniel tried to reach out once. Not to apologize, men like that rarely do. It was a let's be adults message that translated to, let me off the hook without paying the full price. I didn't reply. I didn't need to win against him. I just needed him to feel the weight of a door closing that wouldn't reopen. By the fourth week, the affair couldn't survive daylight. That's another thing people don't understand. Most of these relationships aren't built for real life. They're built for stolen time, for the thrill of secrecy, for the cheap feeling of being chosen without earning it. Take away the secrecy and you take away the fuel. Daniel's life fractured the way it was always going to fracture, slowly, then all at once. Jennifer didn't have to scream. She just had to stop carrying his image for him. The consequences did the rest. Megan's world shrank too. Not in a dramatic movie way. In the small, humiliating ways that matter more. A new apartment with thin walls and unfamiliar sounds. Fewer family invites. Friends who didn't know what to say because the truth had receipts. The absence of a shared home that used to make her feel safe while she was breaking it. The divorce itself became clinical. Forms, signatures, deadlines, inventory. People think divorce is a war. Sometimes it is. For me, it was a closing procedure. I didn't fight for trophies. I fought for clean separation and no loose ends. When the papers were final, I didn't celebrate. I slept deeply for the first time in months. I relocated after that, not as a dramatic reinvention, not with some new identity. Just distance. A smaller place, closer to work, less haunted by the outline of what used to be normal. I built a new routine the way you rebuild after a fire. Practical first, then personal. Gym in the mornings. Work handled. Evenings are quiet. No dating apps. No revenge fantasies. Just a steady return to myself. And still, every so often, Megan would test the line. A new number. A new email. A message that tried to sound reflective. I miss you. I've been thinking. Can we please talk like adults? Hope, again. Not mine. Hers. Hope that time would soften the truth into something she could reshape. One night, after another message found its way through, I sat at my kitchen table and stared at my phone for a full minute before I typed. Not because I was emotional, because final words deserve precision. I wrote one last message, the same way I'd written the first one. Calm, exact, and beyond negotiation. Me, I don't hate you. I'm rebuilding, and I'm doing it without you in my life. Do not contact me again. I hit send and set the phone down. No speeches. No cruelty. Just a boundary so clean it felt like silence with a lock on it. Walking away is one thing. Staying gone is the real work. And for the first time since 247, I felt the work getting lighter.
Subscribe and stay one step ahead of cheaters. And trust me, the next story makes this one look like a fairy tale.